Now we review Godzilla Minus One. That was awesome! Alrighty, ladies and gentlemen, so I have seen the latest in the Japanese Godzilla features, which is, of course, Godzilla Minus One. And my cat is trying to get in. In addition, if you would like to not piss off Godzilla, who lives in the ocean, you might want to comment, like, and subscribe, because for every 1,000 subscribers I get, I do purchase one of these bracelets from 4Ocean. 4Ocean pulls a pound of trash out of the ocean every time I do that. So, Godzilla doesn't want to get that trash on him. And if you want to avoid his nuclear beam, then, this would be a good time to comment, like, and subscribe. With a purposeful grimace and a terrible sound, he pulls those spinning high-tension wires down. Although now I think he's so big that the high-tension wires don't really fit. Okay. So this is a story of essentially the human character is a kamikaze pilot from World War II. He got cold feet. He didn't want to die needlessly and pointlessly, crashing his plane into an enemy ship. So he pretended he had a malfunction and stops off at an island, and then Godzilla shows up. And for the rest of this movie, this man is essentially overcome with cowardice and pain, and seeing the faces of the men who died at the hands of a much smaller Godzilla than we're used to seeing in the modern day. I don't know how this particular Godzilla stacks up to the original, but in the beginning of the movie, there is definitely a Godzilla, and he is somehow even more terrifying than the big Godzilla. The fact that this is a Godzilla that can grab you with his mouth and toss you across the island is somehow so much more horrifying to me. And, it's like people run from Godzilla, and Godzilla seems to be chasing them. Why are you running in that direction? Run sideways away from Godzilla instead of, the Stormtrooper school, the Prometheus school of running away, and get the hell out of his way. He's going that way, but it really doesn't matter because he's Godzilla and he could do so much damage that it doesn't matter where you run. You're kind of almost better off running in his direction, so he'll pass you and walk away. But anyway, so this person is one of the survivors of the Godzilla attack. He comes about he's lost his family, he's lost people he cares about. The war has been a terrible, destructive force on him. And he's found a new family, he's keeping it together, he's working hard to shape the future of Japan, a noble country that has suffered a terrible tragedy. And then, Godzilla shows up. And the G-Man is not happy. And he's gotta go out there and wreck some stuff, and this guy is he has history with Godzilla, so he's gotta take that dude down. The reason the American forces are not involved in this movie is explained by America not wanting to piss off the Russians, being afraid of Russian intervention, and therefore, the Japanese are on their own. They're given whatever they can essentially pull together to attack Godzilla, but he's Godzilla. I mean, your most powerful weapons don't mean a heck of a lot to him. So, there is this movie. And I don't want to spoil anything else. I've almost said too much already. I really have, because this is an incredible movie. And when I say this is an incredible movie, I walked out of this theater, I had to pee halfway through this movie, and I did not get up until the very last credits rolled and the lights came up in the theater, and then I practically staggered to the restroom and just unloaded into that urinal. This movie was so good, it reminded me of walking out of a movie theater back when my mother was alive in the 80s, okay? When I would see a movie and legitimately feel like I wanted to be a better person for seeing that movie. That is how good this movie is. Okay? And I mean, Godzilla movies, the sound design is of course very important. You've got the iconic Godzilla roar. You've got Godzilla's theme song, which it's very different in times. There's even what I'm going to say is a Cloverfield Lane moment where you have total silence, a moment that is so shocking that everything is emphasized by the silence, by the lack of sound. And then, you know, hope is sound returning. This is an incredible moment in this film. I loved every minute of it. And, I mean, yes, there is attention to details. There is a point where there is black rain. Okay, and if you understand the significance of black rain is that after the bombs fell on Hiroshima and Nagasaki, the rain was black. Okay, so this is it's just one of those details that I picked up on, and it meant so much. And also the costume design for this film really does make the characters stand out, which, let's be honest, for us Americans, we're not really used to seeing the Japanese face. It's sometimes hard to distinguish characters, particularly when there's that loss of their original voice. Okay? So it's not that voice coming out of that person, but this had the voice, but it had the subtitles. So it's hard for us to follow. Okay? I mean, some Godzilla movies have had terrible dubbing in the past. This one not having dubbing, I wish I had a pause button so I could have read some of the dialogue, because I did miss it, because the rest of the movie was keeping me so enthralled. But I will admit there that, you know, good movie anyway. So yes, and then the costume design, people were clad in different enough colors so that they were clearly different people, and you could just, like, that's the guy that wears this, he has a different height than this character. They were distinguished in that way. One of the reasons anime, which comes from Japan originally, has those weird hairstyles is because you're trying to distinguish character. That's why people have blue hair. Because you only have so many hairstyles, so there's almost always a dude with red hair. There's a dude with red hair because you want him to stand out. And you have a dude with blue hair. Why has he got blue hair? Because we want him to stand out. So, I mean, their hairstyles were, like, one of the most important characters was a dude with wavy graying hair. Very interesting how that worked. And all of these smaller details were very much there. Now, there were points where the CGI did not look great to me. I could probably pick out any shot in this movie that's CGI. And if it's a close shot, I mean, some of the longer shots, maybe I wouldn't have been able to tell, but a lot of this movie was done with CGI. It is fairly convincing CGI. It is at very least Jurassic Park level CGI, even a little bit better than Jurassic Park level CGI, okay? Which, because most of this is hard surfaces, like the battleships and such, it's not as hard to do that. But, you know, the CGI here is very important for this particular movie. This is not a man-in-the-suit movie, like a lot of your more traditional Godzilla films. And, you know, Godzilla is terrifying, but what they do with him and how his explosive beam, you know, works and all those things, very, very convincing. So that's good. And then, well, the writing for this movie, things pay off. It's a lived-in world. You know, you see Japan recovering from the disaster. You see the devastation. But really, it's just, this is such a well-written film, which is what makes it a great movie. Everything makes sense. Everything fits. All of the ideas come together, and all the things that they were doing fit within each other, so that this is a very tight, well-written, well-rounded film with solid enough acting. I will admit that the hero is a little bit too Luke Skywalker-y, in that he was something of a whiner. He did have a lot of scenes where, you know, he'd sit there and cried, and that was a little jarring. And, I mean, in the end, yeah, Godzilla is a little bit of a Death Star. So there are parallels to Star Wars. But this is still a very well-written film And Star Wars, the original A New Hope was a great movie, so hey, yeah, still liberally. One of the ways they got this film with the budget that they did, I heard it was a very small, but it was like $15,000 or $15 million, is they had a lot of very tight shots with talking heads. A bunch of characters in a room talking, and very often what those characters were doing while they were talking was eating. Okay, it's a lot of, okay, this is sort of our inner sanctum where we get together and we show our trust for each other by having a meal. And in fact, there is a precedent for this in the Japanese culture, because in a traditional time before the war, of course, you know, you had your samurai, and one of the things they would do to show respect for a host is they would put their sword, when they took it off to eat, they would put it on the left side, meaning that it would take them longer to grab that weapon and draw it. So I think it's the left side, but it was one of those things. They put their sword in an inconvenient place to show that they trust their host, and this was considered a great sign of respect. So the consumption of food in the Japanese culture is often a great sign of respect. So it's a wonderful way of doing things. Is just you have people come together to eat. You know, at the beginning, right after the war, food is scarce. And as the movie progresses, you see... Well, talked about that was so long that I ran out of file space. Files on a DSLR can only get so long. But yeah, like I said, as the movie progresses, the food that they're eating gets better. They go from having nothing but rice, and you're trying to boil that rice down to feed this infant. Really... incredible stuff. And you know, the things people are doing to find a job after the war and the risks they take, really touching kind of a thing. And you know, it's just people who are unrelated getting together to save each other. Very moving in this film. So yeah, what do I think of this movie? I'm calling this a must watch. If you're a G fan, you were going to watch this anyway. But as Godzilla movies go, the only film that I can think of that is as good as this one is the original, and I have not seen the original in more than a decade. So, you know, it may have been a true masterpiece for a time, an incredible film about self-sacrifice. Well, this film is just incredible. And the moral of this film is choose life. Choose life. And this is a very powerful thing in the Japanese culture, because suicide, particularly during the Second World War, was extremely common. People felt that death before dishonor, you know, should take my life before I dishonor my country by losing. And yeah, you know, this is a movie that it very much speaks to me. It says choose life. Choose life. Live. Your victory is to live, to survive. Because let's face it, there ain't no taking down Godzilla. Anyway, just my opinion. Love to hear yours. Comments below. I'm Richard. Danger Ducky says it would be sweet as a cupcake if you would comment, like, and subscribe.